It's our last property in Prosecco for the year, which is exciting but sad at the same time. Good to see we've got a good turnout for the last one. So yeah, some of you I think have come because you're locals and you've heard about it, or somebody had come on from Facebook. We've been doing some sort of stuff on there that you might have been interested in. So tonight's all about giving you guys a bit of information on what we do. And first of all, we're not here to sell stuff. We're just here to educate and teach and give you a bit of a heads up on what we do as a business and why we do what we do. Bit of background on myself. My name's Anthony Sewell. I'm the owner and director of the company. I've been doing investment property and finance for the last 27 years, so I know a little bit about this stuff. And I've certainly seen some ups and downs and goods and bad in the market over my years. And I guess one thing I've learned over that time is that it's all about the numbers. When you're investing in property, it's not about being sentimental or emotionally attached to anything. It's about really focusing on the numbers and looking at the numbers and how they suit you and how they're designed for you. Everyone in this room is different and has different needs. And as we say, has different whys. Why do you want to invest in property is the question. Or why is property something you might look to invest in? Well, everyone will have a different answer to that. Some because they're getting close to retirement, some because they're younger and they want to set themselves up. Some want to pay a mortgage off, some want to just invest for the future of their kids and family. So everyone has a different reason and a different desire for property and why. Everyone has a different hunger for property. Some might want one investment property and that'll be enough for them. Some might want 100 investment properties, So, and no matter what you do, it all comes down to the numbers. So it doesn't matter where you're from or what you're looking to do or any of it. It all comes down to the numbers and comes down to how that looks for you. So individually, we can tailor strategies and work with you to do that. And we can certainly happy to talk about that. But the main thing that we're here to do tonight is to give you a bit of education. And I guess just give you a bit of my knowledge on being in this industry for a long time and how I see that that sort of playing out in the history of what we've seen and also in the future. So one of the key things we do as a business, we're very focused on is we're very systemised as a business, and we have good strategies that we implement with our clients. And we love to find out a lot of information about our clients up front. And as I always say, we want to know what your purpose is, what's your why. Why do you want to do this? And we like to find that out so that we can then move to figure out a suitable strategy for what you're looking to do. So that strategy is going to be different, obviously, for everyone because their why is different. And then the idea in the third case is to bring the solution, which is basically the property. So we design the numbers to be a certain way, and really the property is just the item that plugs into the numbers to make them work. So we don't really talk about property. Property is not the thing we're here to do. We're not real estate agents, so to speak. We're just, we're people who want to look at the numbers and design a strategy around the numbers and use property as the tool to make the numbers work. So it's very specific in how we operate and how we work. And there's a process in what we do that for and why we do it. The method to our madness. In everything we do, method to the madness, right? I could go into 5 hours of discussion about everything you want to ask me, but just believe that it's usually the right way, because I've done it long enough. So we're here to try and teach you a bit about what we do. So why buy an investment property? Good question, right? Bit of a interesting and funny video from many years ago that you can watch, and it might give you a bit of an idea on why an investment property is a good idea to buy.
Excuse me, you've just come out of the auction room. Did you buy a block of land?
Nope.
Why not?
Too expensive.
How much did you want to bid?
About 1,600, something like that.
And what were the prices of blocks this morning?
The last 15 or so blocks have started at 2,000 and gone up to anywhere between 3,000 and 4,000.
So what do you do now?
Well, we have to wait and hope for the best at the next one. So I don't know whether there's a complete shortage of land or what the position is, but the restricted auction was just the same.
I mean, it's ridiculous to sort of pay such a lot of money for a block of land when you don't really own it anyway. I mean, you still pay $100 a year to rent the damn thing.
How'd you go at the auction? Did you get a block of land you wanted?
Yes, we did. We were very fortunate this morning, and there were some high prices played, but we played a price that we thought was quite satisfactory.
If you don't, congratulations, but if you don't mind me asking you, how much did you pay?
$3,100.
And what was the size of the land?
Approximately 1 rood in area. A 39.5 purchase this block was.
What was the frontage?
70 feet, 70 foot frontage.
And what depth?
I believe 120 feet.
Back in 1968, $2,000 for a quarter acre block, and they're whinging about it, right? Like, you know, if only we knew. If only we knew, right? Right, so I know, but still, in relative terms, you know, if we kept it today, that'll be worth a lot more than that. That was in ACT, so that's why they're talking about renting the block for 100 years, because in ACT, you don't actually own the land, you lease the land for a 100-year lease. Right, it's a weird setup in ACT, it's a bit weird. But everything's a bit weird in ACT. So basically, you know, interesting to see that back then, but in hindsight, you think, well, why wouldn't I have done it? And all of you probably have a story you can tell of, you know, I wish I should have, if I'd only known, you know, about some property that you saw and now what it's worth today, you know. So we all have that story. So who do we help? As a business, who do we help? Well, I believe we can pretty much help anyone. First-time investors, mum and dad homeowners, those heading towards retirement. Obviously, three totally different types of people and categories, but realistically, those three types of people in those three categories we can help. And they all have different needs. Obviously, first-time investors, they want to get something that's growth-orientated. Mum and dad homeowners, they want to pay off a mortgage. Those heading towards retirement really want to look at some sort of income they can produce out of their investment. So different needs and different requirements, but we can help in all those areas. Right, so Finance 101. All right, I spent a long time doing finance, 18 years as a broker, and having to put up with banks. And I want to ask you a question, which, you know, this might be a hard one to answer. Does your bank really care about you getting ahead in life? So hands up here who, if you base it on the TV ads, right, they do, don't they? I thought they did, that was what they're all pushing, you know, and I thought that was what they really wanted to do, you know, they really want to help us. I mean, they've told me that, you know, we can choose a home loan that's right for you, you know, shop smart and safely with your choice accounts, right? Whether you're whether you're buying or refinancing, we can support you to achieve goals, great flexible features. These guys are lunatics. Look at this, they're paying $4,000 cash back to someone. So actually, you give them your business and they'll give you $4,000 back. Well, who do you know does that? Right? Unless they're going to make a damn lot more money off you than $4,000. Right? And we've all seen where that ends up. And these numbers I haven't updated actually. I need to update them because they're even worse now. But the old numbers from last year, 9.6 billion the bank made, and 7 billion and 6.8 and 5.6. They're all making a lot of money. So, you know, at the end of the day, we're part of that contribution to them. So, did you know also that the word mortgage in French Latin actually means death pledge? Mortgage, yeah.
It's French, you know.
French, he knows. So this is how arrogant they are. They get you to go and sign paperwork with the word death pledge at the top. Because in a different language, right? That's the arrogance of banks.
That's why it was very hard for me to sign a mortgage.
Yeah, probably. You're thinking, what am I doing here? But don't laugh. Most people we see are in a position where they're going to have a mortgage till they die. Because the way the banks have set it up is keeping people in debt forevermore. Right? And the sad part about it is that is real, okay? They're not only saying it to be like, you know, a little bit cheeky, but they're actually really saying it. So this is a statistic that I've put together of all the years I've been doing this, and a number that I've seen is sadly perfectly real every time, because the banks are able to somehow calculate it so it works this way. But the average 55-year-old that we see still owes about a third of the value of their home, no matter where they live. It doesn't matter if it's a $3 million home, they still owe $1 million. If it's a $900,000 home, they'll owe $300,000. Now, I come across this almost to the dollar so often you wouldn't believe it. Now, 55, most people in theory are going to retire at 65, aren't they? Yep. Right, so you've got 10 years. If you still owe a third of the value of your home, right, let's say it's, you know, a $900,000 place and you owe 300 grand, you're probably going to take you 10 years to pay that if you're lucky. So you're going to retire with nothing. All right? So in the perfect world, right? So if we were to go with the idea of what would the perfect scenario look like for someone to achieve financially well in life and do well in life? They'd get a mortgage when they're 20, they'd get a home loan at 20, because they're going to need the time, right? And they would get stuck in for the 20 years and they would pay that home loan off in 20 years' time, right? So at 40 years of age, so those 20 years they've done that for. Then for the next 20 years, they're going to get stuck into investing for their retirement. Then at 60, they're going to retire and hopefully live comfortably, right? Now, my granddad, he died at 98, so he went way past this, but he also retired at 55, right? But he was lucky. I mean, he invested in BHP when they first started, you know? So he had shares and he did really well for himself and died quite comfortable. You know, he had done very well for himself, but because he had actually spent time investing and he pretty much did a lot of this the right way. But so many people we see these days, there's no chance. They don't do this at all. It just doesn't happen. And if you look at what the versus what we see basically is, you know, if someone got a mortgage at 20, which they don't, most people probably get a mortgage here about 30 or something like that these days, and then they're getting to 55 and they're still owing about a third of the value of the home at this point here. That means they're pushing this right up here now to be their zero position. And then from there, they're going to have to try and invest or do something or rely on their super, which is just not going to do it. It's not going to cut it. I mean, the average income for a dual, like, you know, couple now in retirement, like living on, this is the top dollar that they're going to be living on, is together $75,000 a year. So that's if you're doing really well in retirement as a couple, at 75 grand a year together. That's not each, that's just together. But most people are nowhere near that. Like, that's a very small percentage of people in that band. So the numbers just aren't in your favour when you're you know, doing this mortgage journey in Australia. They just don't work. So what I unfortunately have phrased it as I've said, if you have a mortgage, you know, you have financial cancer, because that's what I believe it is. I've got family members that have had cancer and died from cancer. Okay, it's not a word I use lightly. But I've watched it, and I watch what this does, and it's no different. This does exactly the same as what cancer does to your body, to your finances. It eats them away slowly, right, until you die. And that's what basically a mortgage is. It's financial cancer, right? So, you know, it's a terrible way to sort of say it, but at the end of the day, it's a terrible sentence, isn't it? Right? So how can we help you cure your financial cancer and set you free from your death pledge? Right? I mean, it's every time I read it, I go, oh, you know. But that's what it is, right? At the end of the day, this is let's get down to the tin tacks, right? You've got financial cancer if you've got a mortgage, and if you've got a mortgage, you've signed a death pledge. It's that simple. So we need to fix the problem. We need to cure that and get rid of that. And the majority of people who are in that Australian sort of living, you know, in a home sort of thing are mortgaged, and they have this problem, and they're in this position. So. Okay, so let me just change, bring the mood up again now. So what if you could make $300,000 over the next 5 years to cost you nothing to do it, right? And it's legal, there's no drugs involved at all. No drug running or anything like that, right? Totally legal. But you can make $300,000 over the next 5 years to cost you nothing to do it. Who wouldn't do that? Right? I mean, there's no real catch, it's just, we believe it can be done. We believe we can show you how that can be done. Right? It is possible to do this. So let me give you a bit of an idea on a case study here, and I'll show you the numbers on how I believe. There's two parts to that. There's the 300,000 over 5 years, and there's the nothing to do it part. Okay, there's two very separate parts, but let's just delve into each one as you go. So a bit of a case study here. So just to give you a clarification on numbers first, if we work on a property value of 800,000, 7% capital growth over 5 years, projected 5-year value of 1.120 million, that is about $320,000. Okay, so there's your 300. So the numbers work, right? So maths doesn't lie. That's the numbers, right? So we know we can achieve that result. Now, what if you took that $300,000 and you're able then to sell the property and pay that off your mortgage in 5 years' time? So if you made money at $300,000 over 5 years, then we sell that investment property, we take that 300, we pay it off your mortgage. Let's just ignore capital gains tax for this exercise. There's always one, right? That's okay, right? There's so many factors that come into play with capital gains. It's too hard to bring that into the play. But let's just assume, okay, that if you took the 300 grand, you paid off your mortgage. Well, that wouldn't be a bad way to do it, would it? Like if you could do that, and let's say it cost you nothing to do that. Let's say you made that 300 grand and it cost you nothing to do that over the next 5 years. Okay, I made 300 grand for nothing and I can pay my mortgage off. Okay, that sounds pretty easy. Why isn't everyone doing this? Well, because who tells you? Who's going to ring you? Your bank? They're going to show you how to pay it off faster? What about your accountant? Any accountants here? Hands up before I abuse accountants. Okay. Accountants are historians, 9 times out of 10. They deal with the after facts, right? They always look at you and go, why'd you do that? And you go, why didn't you tell me not to do it? Like, I didn't know, like, you know. No, they're not proactive. They're not helping you actually learn these things and go, oh, okay. You're learning from your mistakes rather than actually in advance. And, you know, financial planners can't talk about property. They're not allowed to, right? They're only allowed to talk about securitized investments like shares and super, insurance, all that sort of stuff. So there's not a lot of people out there. Real estate agents, the best investment for you is whatever's in their window, right? Within their 4-kilometre radius, right? So, you know, oh, it's a great investment, mate, you know. Like, I'm 18, you know, I can tell you it's a great investment, you know. Oh, no, I've been doing this for 3 weeks. No, $3 million on this 2-bedroom unit. No, it's good. No, you make heaps of money on it. No recourse, right? But if a financial planner gets it wrong on $5 worth of shares, $1 million fine. Right? Don't get me started on the logic of that. And our industry should be policed more and should be, you know, reined in for people doing this to people because it's not right. Anyway, I digress. Matt and Kate, our example here in the case study, they've got a home value of $1.5 million. They currently own $900,000 on it. It's not an unrealistic number, not an unrealistic situation. It's a situation we see often. Their goal, clients would like to have their home loan paid off in next 10 years. Okay? So you're probably looking at those numbers thinking, all right, they earn 260 grand, 30 grand. That's gross. So less tax, he's not earning anywhere near that. They've got $900,000 mortgage. How are they going to pay that off? How are they going to... No, I know. But pretend that's Kate and pretend that's Matt. I don't care. These were real clients. Okay. These were real clients. Okay? Whatever. We can change it. But actually, Kate before that was earning 900 grand a year. Is that okay? But she actually took time off because she had COVID and she got sick from it really badly. I'll make the story up for you just to make it easier. Anyway, that's not the issue here, right? The issue in this is they've got a $900,000 worth of financial cancer in their lives, right? They've got a problem, right? They've got to get rid of. So, and how are we going to do that in 10 years? Like they want to do it in 10 years, but it's like, well, how are you going to do it in 10 years? I believe we can. I believe I can show them how they can pay $900,000 off in 10 years and it'll cost them nothing to do it. Zero out of their pocket, right? So let me show you how that works, right? Let me give you a visual on how that works. So we've got their home here worth 1.5 million. We've got their loan here of $900,000. Right? We've said that they're going to, in the other example there, I said, all right, let's take the example of a property that's worth $800,000. And we know that from maths, based on 7% capital growth over 5 years, that if that property grows in 5 years' time, will be worth $1.12 million. Right? And that means they've made $320,000, so let's just call it $300,000 over that time. In 5 years' time, we want to sell that property. And we're going to take that $300,000 and we're going to pay that off over here, leaving them now a $600,000 debt on the home, right? Now, the way the banks work is they don't like personal debt. They don't like your home loan, right? In the sense of if you've got personal debt, it's a lot more, it's like a boat anchor, right? They say, no, the more personal debt you've got, the less we're going to lend you for investing. So if we can jump $300,000 over here and drop that down to 600, there's a good chance that the capacity these guys will have to borrow again is going to jump immensely, right, to enable them now to this time be able to go and buy 2 properties for $800,000, which now in the next 5 years will grow 300,000 on one, 300,000 on the other. So there's now $600,000. We now sell both these properties in that next 5 years and we pay their home loan off. Done. Now, it's not a perfect science, right? Obviously markets change, there's different things. But I've got clients that I've said, yeah, we're going to do this in 3 years, and they've come back to me, and one came back to me in 3.5 years and said, you lied to me. I said, did I? He said, yeah. You told me I'd make 300 grand in 5 years. I said, okay. He goes, well, I've made 300 grand, it's only 3.5 years in. I said, okay. He said, well, let's sell it, I guess. I said, yeah, good idea. Like, I don't care. Like, you did it 3.5 years, and he goes, it's great. I'm loving it, right? But other people, it's taken 7 years because we might have picked an area that had a growth spurt, but then it's just whatever happened in the market and it's just hovered a bit. It's taken a little bit longer. Doesn't matter. They've got a plan to do it. In their situation there's not a chance they could pay that in 10 years. Not a chance. If they go and have kids and then Matt stops working, and Kate has to then say that she's the breadwinner, right? They're in a big problem, aren't they? Or maybe Kate might stop working because it's probably easier financially. But in this situation, they would. Matt would stay working because he has to. He'd probably work 100 hours a week because he's got to now, because he's got to make up for no money coming in, and they're trying to pay a massive bill and kids' payments and all these things, and their life just becomes chaos. And then they turn 55, happy birthday. They own, still owe a third of the value of their home. And then what happens is, quite often or not, I'll often see a client, who they've been living in their house for 20 years, let's say, right? Or 25 years. And I'll say to them, oh yeah, so when did you buy it? Oh, we bought back in 1998, Oh, what's your house worth today? Oh, 1.5, oh yeah. So what did you pay for it back in 1998? Oh, I think it was 380,000, wasn't it, darling, Yeah, it's 380,000, yeah. Okay, great, no worries. So what was your mortgage back then when you got your mortgage? Oh, I think I got a mortgage for about, I think it was about 320,000. Oh, okay, great. So why is your mortgage now 900,000? What happened? You had a 320 grand mortgage, it's now gone 3 times as much. You've gone backwards at a rate of knots, and now you're telling me you want to go forward at a rate of knots within 10 years. Because, we did do some renos, we put a pool in, we had, we refinanced a car, we did whatever the reasons, a boat, some holidays, whatever it is, right? The bank makes it easy for you to do. It makes it like, oh no, just take it, it doesn't matter, But every time you do it, you reset your clock for 30 years, right? So the clock keeps resetting. I've got 2 clients that came to me today. He's 67, okay. Then she was working, earning about 45 grand a year, and she was 64, and she's working at Bunnings. And it's the analogy I always use, isn't it, guys? Like I always say, when you go and see those 63-year-olds, go to Bunnings, you always see them working there. Because they're all working there because they've got to work somewhere, and Bunnings seems to be the place the old guys all seem to go, and they love, tinkering with tools, and they go up and work there, but they're all the old guys because they've got to go back to work. And you just see them there often, and you see them at Woolies, you see them all over the place, right? And you feel for them because these guys, now he's 67 earning 150 grand a year, that's great. She's earning whatever it was, 45. But these guys are in their 60s and now they want to do something. What bank's going to lend them money on a 30-year loan? Well, he'll be 97 by the time he pays the loan off, right? I mean, this is the problem. He's now snookered himself to the point that the banks aren't going to even want to touch them. And this is the problem. It's like people just realise this stuff way too late, and it just becomes really problematic. And if you download our ebook that I've written, it talks all about that. It talks about the generational gaps and ages of all the people and all those different decisions they've made in those age groups. And it also is the upbringing we've all had from the different parents from different age groups. You know, the Depression era parents were very conservative, and then, you know, their kids were a little bit less conservative, and so on and so forth. But the problem is, we're all generational educated by our parents and what their habits were. And we all have instilled things in our head to operate that way. It's the same as culturally. You know, culturally, people from different countries have different mindsets, you know, and about investing and stuff, you know, and it's like all the Greeks when they came over in the 70s and all that sort of stuff. I mean, they just property moguls because they just had this mindset of just buy property, you don't do anything else, just buy property, and then they own the whole street, you know, and it's like all they do on a Saturday is go collect the rent checks. All cash, mind you, all cash, you know. My friend's Greek and she's like hilarious. She goes, my dad, like, because she turned 30 at the time when I was talking to her years ago, and she was like a millionaire. And I'm going, how the freaking heck are you a millionaire at 30? Like, you know, she goes, my dad. I said, what do you mean? She goes, every paycheck I got, joink, just took it out of my hands. I had no money. Like, for all my life, I've had no money. You know, and she said, I hated him for it, like, you know, but she said, now I'm just like going, wow, like, look what he's done to me. He's made me be in a position where I can now sell all my investments. I can buy my own. This was $1 million like 20 years ago, right? She could sell her investments and buy her own house, luxury, beautiful house to live in, and be debt-free, then go invest again, you know, for a future. And she knew that. And this is the thing, it's a cultural thing. So in Australia, we're hopeless. There's no education, there's no school, there's no, you know, we all remember Pythagoras' theorem at school, you know, things, stupid things like that. But no one remembers basic budgeting class and basic, you know, how compound interest works and all this stuff. They don't teach that stuff. Why would they? Better to keep you dumb, right? Not to educate you of the ways of the world, because then you're going to challenge it all. You know, so there's a bigger picture at play here. But the main thing is that in Australia, we aren't very good at it. We're not very good at it. We want to have all the stuff and we don't really want to pay for it, you know. So these guys here, yes, it is possible in this scenario and doing it this way with the numbers as they are there to make that work. We could pay off that $900,000 over 10 years and it costs them nothing to do it. So, as I said here, it costs them nothing to do it. The nothing to do it bit, right? So, who here owns their own business? Okay. Who here believes that statement isn't true? Who owns their own business? All right? It's 100% true. If you don't have...
Revenue is vanity.
That's it.
It's clean, but cash
Yeah,
flow is king.
that's right. And at the end of the day, if you do not have cash flow, you don't survive. And cash flow is what makes it work. So when you buy an investment property, right, even if you buy one, you've still got to just think of it as a mindset, is you're buying a small business. Don't think about it as I'm buying a thing, you know, that I want to be all emotional and fuzzy and warm about and sentimental. Don't think of it as buying an investment property. You're buying a small business. So what you need to do when you buy a small business is look at the books and look at the numbers and say, is this small business going to be generating a good cash flow for me? Is it going to generate good income? Because the income is what lets you weather the storms to survive. Classic example, i.e. stupid interest rate rises. Don't get me started on the Reserve Bank and their stupidity, right? But you don't go leaving it for a generation of people to think that that's the way of the world and then go and do 13 rate rises like in a row like they've done. I mean, I live at Wollongong now. I used to live in the Shire for 27 years, don't, you know, it's okay. I live at Wollongong now, right? Yeah, yeah, I had the oxygen mask on and everything. But, you know, when I go down Mount Ousley, right, I have a habit, and that's as I'm driving down, I touch the brake and slow myself down as I'm going down the hill, right? I would think that's pretty much normal with most people when they go down a hill, right? Except for the Reserve Bank, right? They just went down, yeah, let's just do it, no brakes, let's see how fast we can go down here. What do you think was going to happen when they hit the bottom of that hill with no touching the brake all the way down? It was always going to be carnage, right? So they should have just put one rate rise in the middle of all that hysteria just to stir the pot up and to make people go, what's going on here? Like, not like carry on like they were and make out that nothing was ever wrong or nothing was ever going to go wrong. And it was very, very poor planning. And the idea with cash flow is if you set up property that has good cash flow, it enables you to weather the storm of stupid interest rate rises or different things in the market, right? If you're in Sydney, like, you know, if you own investment property in Sydney, well, I feel for you because it's painful. Like the rates are going up and that mortgage payment's gone massively up. And you've got these tenants that are whinging like you wouldn't believe because, oh, my rent's gone up $50 a month, I can't believe it. The owner's mortgage has gone up probably $1,000 a month, and he's passing the small bit onto you as a renter, you know, and they're whinging that their rents have gone up, you know. It's like, if it was in real terms of what they were actually going up, the renters would have a heart attack. I mean, they'd be all moving to back of Burke because they wouldn't be able to afford anywhere else. But I mean, realistically, the problem in Sydney right now is that the rents can't go up fast enough to catch up to that rate, and so many people are bleeding in Sydney. It's really, really hurting their numbers in their pocket, you know. And it's, I mean, this is where we're seeing now is still, I think, the party time. There's no hangover yet. Another year or so, we're going to see a lot of people falling off perches and a lot of property going backwards and a lot of problems. It takes a while for this stuff to catch up. There's still 150,000 people, right, that still have to come out of fixed rates in the next 3 months. So, you know, once that hits, it's going to be another world of pain, right? So there's a lot of pain coming, and cash flow seems to just make all that pain go away, right? Because it just does. Because it means you can survive. You can look at it and go, whatever. Okay, I don't get as much cash flow, much income now off the property, but I'm still getting income. That's how you've got to think of it, right? Better than being $500 a week negatively geared. So let me give you a couple of examples here. I'll give you 3 examples here that we showed to those clients. I've used some standard numbers here, and these are just standard numbers to give you an idea of the numbers. Don't worry about the specifics for those engineers of you out there that want to be detailed. We're just looking at the numbers, and we're looking at where the numbers lie for growth and for cash flow, the 2 key points, right? So $812,000 was the property we showed on value. This property here was a house, and it was $700 a week in rent. At the time, the interest rate was 5.5%. Okay, so it wasn't bad, it wasn't that long ago. But I'm happy to still use that because I still think rates will come back down at some point next year, and they're probably going to level out around here somewhere at some point, right? They're going to be all right. So I don't think those numbers are too far off in the bigger picture. So 5.5%. There's some costs in here, tax benefits. Their income here, an income here of $210,000 we used on the example. These people here would be minus, based on their numbers, they'd be minus $1,242 a year negatively geared, or $24 a week negatively geared. Okay, so if they bought that property, it'd be costing them $24 a week to run that property. If we change that interest rate by just 0.5%, right, that number would probably jump up to maybe $60 a week negatively geared. If we change it by another 0.5%, it'll jump up again. Like there's all these, you know, things that change. If we change the rent, if the rent went up a little bit, that would bring that down a little bit. It might bring it down to 10 or $4 a week negatively geared. The thing is though, there's still that word in that sentence, negative. I hate that word. Right? I don't like the negative word. We don't need to be buying property that's negative because there's so much out there that is positive you can do. There's no need for it. But for some people's strategies, you know, they might like the area that property was in, and they might say, well, you know, I'm happy to buy it, and I believe I can afford $24 a week out of my pocket. So they would accept that, right? But if you also look at that property value over that 5-year period, they've made $307,000 plus the initial 19 here, so they've made about $320 odd plus a little bit. So we know that the 300 is achievable in the 5-year period. Example number 2, same purchase price, no difference in the numbers there, right? This one is one of our co-living style homes. So a co-living home is a normal everyday 4-bedroom house and land that we put 3 en-suites off 3 of the bedrooms. We put a lockable linen cupboards, lockable pantry cupboards, and we rent it to 3 separate people, fully furnished, right? So we rent it to 3 separate people. And these only work in certain areas, but in this area, that $812,000 home might have got about $800 a week as a normal home, but if we did it as co-living, it's going to get about $1,200 a week in co-living. So suddenly then the cash flow goes up quite substantially, and we're now $12,944 a year positively geared, which is $249 a week positively geared. All right, so that's not bad. That's like another, you know, 12 grand a year. So if we said this client here, for example, who wants to pay their home loan off for 5 years, not only are we going to make the growth over that time of the 300 grand in 5 years, if we get the 7% every year, but let's say 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 in positive cash flow over that 5 years. That's pretty good. Right? That might pay the capital gains tax bill. All right? But in the meantime, the money's coming in against your mortgage and helping you pay some of that off to make it easier for us to pay the rest of it off. So the cash flow is helping quite substantially in being able to help their own lives and flow the money through. they're in a financial position with their capacity to look at also a property that was one of our NDIS properties. So at the time, this was an example of one of the NDIS properties that we had. And it was $812,000 and it was $1,600 a week in rent, which is about $22,000 a year positively cash flow, which is $439 a week in that first year positively cash flowed. So although they bought the same purchase price, 3 different styles of properties, 3 different areas, you can see the difference, right? Out of those 3, it's easy to say, oh, which one would you buy? But I mean, it might not suit them. An NDIS style property might not suit their needs. Because if we want to pay that off and do what this strategy is here, then an NDIS property is not necessarily suited for that. An NDIS property is more suited for longer term ownership, for people who might want to go into retirement and who might want to get an income stream for the next 10, 15, whatever years, right? Whereas they might look at a co-living property, the other one before that, which has got good positive cash flow, but it's going to give them good growth, so we can sell that in 5 years and pay the lump sum off the home loan, right? So the numbers there are pretty straightforward. So what I wanted to show you there was, yes, not only can you make the money to pay the home off, but you can do it with nothing out of your pocket, but you can even do it with money coming into your pocket. I didn't want to say that in the first because you go, okay, that's enough, this guy's full of it. But it's true, you can do that. It's not only nothing coming out of your pocket, but you're getting paid money to own the property because the cash flow numbers work. It's all numbers. None of it's smoke and mirrors. It's all just fact, right? If you find a property that has those numbers, that's how it will work, right? And this is the key. It's about designing it to suit people's lifestyles and to suit people's needs and what their why is, what their purpose is. So when it comes to property itself, we believe there's 3 key factors why you'll get capital growth on a property. There's infrastructure, government spending and population growth. So I don't care where it is in the world, if you've got a property that is getting lots of infrastructure, an area that's getting lots of infrastructure, government spending and population growth, you will get good capital growth. If you've got an area that's getting poor infrastructure, market's going to start to go, right? You can get some indicators, but it's hard to know. You want to start seeing usually something that's started to come up, usually when rents start to increase, when you notice a disparity between your normal 1-to-1 ratio. So if you've got a property worth 700, getting 700 a week, that's your 1-to-1 ratio. When you get like your 700 getting 800 a week, you go, ooh, hang on, that looks good. That area's starting to look a bit sizable now. And because there's excitement there, people are paying more for rent. So people get sick and tired of paying more for rent. They're going to go, why would I pay this? I'll go and buy a place. So it puts pressure back on the market then for people buying places. So the idea is that if you can buy sort of down this area, it's always nice. But anywhere in this area is usually pretty good, right? Usually if it's come up here and it's in some sort of magazine or paper, it's too late. Everyone knows about it. You're getting on the bandwagon too late. Mum and dad investors, they invest about here, right? Thinking, oh, because Johnny told them 3 years ago this was a good area. And then Bob told him 2 years ago it was a good area. And then Simon told him, you know, a year ago it was a good area. And then he's gone, I think it might be a good area. Let's invest. You reckon? Like, you've just missed the boat by a mile, which was down here, and now you're getting in here. And then all of a sudden the market turns and comes down here and they're like, oh, I can't believe it. We lost money on property. It's the property's fault. You know, property's terrible. Never going to invest in property ever again. Nothing to do with property, got to do with poor planning and decision making, right? They're buying in an area that's not enabling to get that growth because they're not buying as part of the cycle and they're not looking at the infrastructure, government spending, population growth as a good guide for what's happening, right? So there's a lot of factors in that, but you know, there's a lot of things there's no magic trick to sort of figure out if a spot's going to be, you know, worth X amount in 5 years, absolutely or not. I mean, no one has a crystal ball, but you can certainly get a pretty good gauge from these facts and sort of narrowing it down. Next property hotspot. Well, here we go, eh? It's the bit everyone goes, oh, okay, tell me this. So, a lot of Australia has suffered, of late, no doubt about it. Your Brisbane, your Sydney, your Melbourne, suffering fairly bad, sort of markets at the moment, very stagnant markets. Some areas are dropping in some suburbs, some areas are still slightly moving. But the whole idea that, property can't go backwards, in Sydney or in other areas is a lie, because I've seen it happen many a time. And I've seen people lose out horribly, in areas. Normally because they're bought in at the wrong time, they're bought here and they're selling here. It's just, bad timing. But normally the reason why they have to sell here is because their cash flow is wrong. And they haven't got enough income coming in to support it to ride that storm and come around for another journey. So they have to sell it. They've got no choice but to sell it. So they get themselves stuck. But the property hotspots, when we mean this, we mean based on what we just said. Infrastructure, government spending, population growth. What areas have got that happening in abundance? And what areas during the big boom we just had didn't really go in Australia? What stuff that didn't really happen that's now got stuff that's going for it? Sort of it's opposite to where this is. Sydney's sort of over here, but these other places are sort of now starting to move way ahead of where Sydney is. So that's what we're sort of looking at some of this. So these are two areas which we've picked up on as being good spots. First one is Perth in WA. Now, I've been doing this a long time. I have not ever sold in Perth before. Perth to me was like a roller coaster. It was up and down, it was all over the place. It was a terrible market, volatile, you could never pick it, what it was going to do. It was very mining, centric, and it was a real problematic place to look to invest. And I was always scared of throwing investors over there, and the next minute they'd be hating me, and the next minute they'd be loving me, and then hating me, and it's just I couldn't handle that emotional roller coaster. So I didn't touch it, but now I really feel Perth has become it's become a grown-up city. It's become a city that actually is a real city that has an opportunity to do something because it's got some foundational elements about it. There's a good workforce over there now. 3 million people there now. It's starting to really happen. It's a very easy city to get around. It's it's actually the biggest city in the world. Right? Perth actually runs for 175 kilometres because they built it very smart. Right? Whoever did it was a bit of a genius because they've gone, well, hang on a second. This way is water. This way is desert. Let's just stick to the water bit, eh? And let's just build right along that water strip, right? Not head towards the desert, right? I mean, this is what a lot of countries, Sydney headed out towards the mountains, right? And the prices sort of drop as you go out towards west, right? Well, up there, they sort of drop a little bit as you go north and south. It's sort of weird because it sort of runs in this big, long, skinny strip. Beautiful thing is, everyone's near the water, right? You're sort of all near the water. You're not far from the water. Like you say you live near the water in Perth, everyone goes, yeah, whatever, because it's not that uncommon, right? So very smart planning in how they've designed the city and how they've laid it out. But once again, we look at the factors, we look at the numbers. There's the numbers are strong. Inflation's not bad over there. Average weekly earnings is very strong. So that means there's a lot of disposable income still over there. It's not all from mining. There's a lot of other sectors over there that are bringing in money. And it's actually quite a stable location now. So we believe it's ripe for the picking because it's probably around here somewhere. It's around this sort of area, I reckon. And it's sort of it's got all the signs that things are going to keep steadily moving along. Not booming, but just nicely moving along for the next 5 to 10 years. We should see some nice growth over there. Very affordable, okay? Very affordable. Every house they build over there is out of double brick. I said, why do you do that? Was there some sort of insulation thing? I said, no, some bloke did it, and that's what we just did from evermore. Right? If you build brick veneer, cheap and nasty house, mate, I won't touch that. Like, no one wants brick veneer. They all want double brick. So all the houses are double brick, they're good quality, so yeah, really good and surprisingly well affordable compared to other cities that we build in. Land is still very affordable as well, so that's a plus. So yeah, definitely a good location to look at. Another one we've done a bit in lately is Darwin, Northern Territory. It's a funny place, okay? I had to go there to understand it, to get my head around it, but once I went there I said, yeah, I get this, it makes sense. I mean, there's only 150,000 people live in Darwin. right? But per head of person there, you would not believe the amount of money they're investing in that place. Like the billions and billions of dollars that are going into Darwin, it's just, you just can't fathom it. There's 10,000 US soldiers live up there, you know, on the base, on the army base, right? And Air Force. You've got Boeing moved 350 people from America with a big Boeing, the big B-52 bombers are now there as well, based there. You've got obviously a lot of mining and gas around the areas. There's a lot of tourism, but the thing that struck me most was amazing was that there's only about 5 to 7 years left of usable land. So the land around Darwin is either national park, Aboriginal heritage protected land. There's a lot of it around there too. It's land that they're using for the Defence Force, so a lot of defence land. There's a lot of American base sort of stuff there that you can't go near, or machine guns will come out and stuff, like it's a bit scary. But they own a lot, and when you look at what's available there left to build on, there's not much left to build on. It's quite frightening. Like you just think, well, wow, this place is running out of land at a rate of knots. There's a lot of companies up there advertising for people to move up there to work. There's nowhere for them to live. We stayed in the hotel. Most of the hotel was full of workers living in there, full-time living there, because there's nowhere for them to live. They just built a university, and a Northern Territory government, they're a little bit behind. Like, they reckon there's at the border of Queensland, this is saying something, and Northern Territory, there's a sign that says, turn your clock back 1 hour and 25 years. And that's coming across the border from Queensland to Northern Territory, right? So that's saying a lot, right? So they just built a 3,000 a university there that caters for 3,000 international students to come across. Yet in their local town planning, they don't have anything to do with the student accommodation. So, I don't know what they plan to do. Here's an idea, that's what they said. They said, okay, we don't have anything like that. Rather than fixing the problem, they're going to bill it out the 3,000 people to grandma who lives in a house. They're going to pay a little bit of rent money each week for the person to live there. This is like the 1985 soccer team when you went to like live, you know, out in the country somewhere, right? You've got billeted out in the house, right? I mean, this is so ridiculous, right? So the government is still, the federal government run it up there, right? Because it's the territory, right? So there's some really backwards things about it, but there's some amazingly forward things about it that are really happening. And there's a lot of money up there. There's houses selling for $12 million up there, right? So it's not, it's an expensive city to live in some of the areas there, very expensive. But there's still good value for money. A lot of money in infrastructure, a lot of money in projects, just incredible amount of money for such a small area. Like, everything's got billion next to it, look, billions, you know. It's just incredible what they're spending. So a lot of money going on up there, a lot of opportunity in those areas. We went up there for a bit of a trip, we took a chopper ride, and we were able to see some of these. Like, for example, these are the local fuel containers that house all the local fuel. And these giant ones here, they hold all the fuel just for the jet fighters, for the US Air Force. Yeah. That's just their fuel. It's way more than the local fuel supply. I mean, it's incredible what they're doing. I mean, and they just finished building those. There's a massive transport hub they're building as well. You can see all the mangroves. You can't touch any of this. There's a lot of protected land that you can't do much with. Here's one of the sites we flew over, some of the new sites that they just are developing there. Everything up there is built out of Besser block, so you can see they're Besser block houses. They're not brick, cyclone proof obviously, and these things are cyclone proof. I've never seen anything built so well. I mean, they're built, they'll withstand a cyclone, there's no doubt about that. But you can see the land, a lot of that mangroves, a lot of that stuff you can't touch. You've got two parts of Darwin. There's Darwin City, and then you come out, there's industrial, then you've got Palmerston. Palmerston's the area that most people want to live in. This is Palmerston here. It's quite a big suburb, quite a big area. There's university, there's hospitals, there's Bunnings and all the different, you know, big shopping centres, and yeah, it's very, very well catered for. You wouldn't even have to leave Palmerston. You can stay there forever, basically. It's quite well set out, all new housing developments, schools going in, very well laid out, very well done. So not a bad location, just a few videos, give you an idea. There's those fuel silos again. The racetrack, of course, I have to show the racetrack, you know. Got Hidden Valley Raceways, that's pretty cool. So that's one of the sites up there that we've developed for some of the clients. There was 4 houses going along there, and those clients are very happy. Andrew's taking a photo of them. There's me pointing at something looking like I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, there's some of the homes. That one there is worth about 12 mil, that house there. Happy clients. Maria is either on a really big chair or she's shrunk, I'm not sure. Big chair, okay. Markets, they've got markets almost every night and they're huge. They're just fantastic markets. The Menindle markets there on the beach are amazing. Thousands of people go to it every Thursday night and watch the sunset. It's amazing. But yeah, it's a pretty good atmosphere up there. A lot of people, a lot of multicultural stuff going on. So that's an example, one of our co-living ones there, which we were talking about before. That's an example of an NDIS home there, that one of the ones we sold recently. These are ones we sold recently. And here's some photos of our completed homes. So these ones are actually all NDIS disability homes. So we specialise in NDIS disability. We have our own NDIS SDA management business as well, so we manage the properties as well. And I think that unless you actually manage the properties, you really don't know what you're doing. The management side of things is just so complex and it is so full on. It teaches you so much about the product that we don't do anything or make any decisions unless the management team tell us what we should be building, what level we should be building at, where we should be building it. Right? We're very, very fussy about. We do it in reverse. You know, we get a lot of that information from management, the property management side, because they tell us where the participants, the likelihood of getting participants in the homes. We just sold a home recently up in Queensland. It was $1 million, and that one will get. It's a dual key, so it's got a 3-bedder and a 2-bedder, right, stuck together. It's going to have one participant either side, so $1 million. It's going to get $2,700 a week in rent. All right. So the returns are phenomenal on some of these, and we believe that the numbers we're quoting are spot on because we've got almost 100 homes we've built now, and we've got a 95% occupancy rate. So we know what we're doing in this space. Right? We didn't know, and no one knew 5 years ago. It was a brand new space, and it was scary. Everyone jumped in going, "What the heck are we supposed to do?" NDIS said, "Here's a 50,000-page booklet. Off you go, and good luck." There was no training or knowledge, and no care provider understood it, and we were like, ugh. But you know, we've done it based on the fact that we build a beautiful home, right? First and foremost, that just so happens to be compliant. A lot of builders out there are building compliant homes, which means they look ugly. They're like a hospital, right? And that's the problem. You've got to build it. I mean, look, if anyone in this room had an accident and ended up with a disability, and they were able to get approved for SDA funding and get a home, do you want to live in a home that looks like a hospital, or do you want to live in a home that feels like a home? Right? It's fully compliant, meets all the standards, gives them all the things they need. It just doesn't look like a hospital. And some of them look like prisons. Stainless steel toilets and sinks. Like you're just like, oh, yeah, righty-o. Like, and you're living there for the rest of your life. Like, whereas we design these ones, these are all NDIS SDA homes we've built, right? That's the inside of one. They've got this special thing for the TV so that if anyone throws things at the TV, it doesn't damage the TV, but that's the only thing you really notice about the difference in it. Other than that, that's a disability kitchen, right? I mean, and that's a disability bathroom. We don't design them to look ugly. We don't design them to be something that is not, not attractive. So we've got the SDA business, as I said, we've got our foreign finance business so we can look after your finance and stuff there, and we've got our own co-living management business. We've got a rental guarantee product, which I want none of you to ever use. Right? You don't need to use it. We have it there for people who can't sleep at night. I have a client of mine, I love him, but he's bought 3 properties off me now, and I keep saying to him, stop with the rental guarantee. You've got 3 properties. We've got tenants in all of your properties. You've never had a day without a tenant, have you? He's like, no. And I'm like, why are you bothering wasting your money on this rental guarantee? You don't need it. Right? He's like, no, I still want it. So even if I had to start it up just for him, but some people can't sleep at night unless they have a guarantee. Or unless they go, oh, I just need to know I've got a guarantee, So we do that as our own thing to help people. But as I said, I don't want people to take it up. You don't need it. It's a waste of money. Right? We sell our properties in areas where we know we're going to get tenants because they're areas of demand. They're areas that are going to get you good rent. And that's what we've never really had a problem. When we set that up, I sat down with all the guys and I said, listen, How many of you have ever had problems getting tenants in our properties that we've sold? And everyone's going, well, none. Like, no one's really had a problem with it. Okay, well, why are we bothering setting it up? I don't know, but we did it for the people who are worried about it, right? So that's why we do it, not for any other reason. We also have our Save Your Finances, our company that I wanted to really make sure we give back a bit with that. And for every $100,000 you borrow through the brokerage there and settles, we'll give $100 donate to charity. So if you borrow $700,000, we'll give $700 to a charity of your choice. If you don't have a charity you support or choose, we'd love you to support our charity, which is Destiny Rescue. They rescue kids from child sex slavery around the world. There's 1 million kids right now around the world who are as young as 3 months old, right, who are being held in and trafficked for sex slavery. Kids being stolen from families all around the world. It's the fastest growing illegal trade now. It's worth $150 billion a year. It is a rampant problem, and these guys do an amazing job. They rescue kids from these. They go and do full missions with local police and authorities, and they do stings and they get these kids out. Then they spend the next 2 years re-educating and training the older ones and looking after them and trying to get them into proper jobs and proper careers and doing things like that. It's amazing what they do. So, I mean, you know, amazing work, and it'd be great if you guys could support our charity. We would love it. So, the thing is now, I guess, for you guys, be careful not to suffer from analysis paralysis. It's easy to overanalyze all the stuff and start going, oh yes, but if I do it this way, you can do all you like, but there's, as I said, there's always a method to our madness and a reason why we do what we do. We've been doing it a very long time, so we know we've tried all sorts of different things and recipes, and we know what the right recipe is now for the secret sauce, right, to make it work. And the whole idea is that you know, I want to be able to journey, and I help the guys with all the consultants that work with us. I help all them with everybody to make sure we're doing the right things and we're looking at the right things and nothing's slipping through the cracks and we're getting everything right when we do it and set up a strategy and we get it right. So everything we do is very specific, it's very tailored and very designed around what you need. But I guess that's the thing we see most. People overanalyze and they get caught up in too much and they just don't do anything. They get paralysed and just don't do anything. And they waste another 5 years of their life and another 5 years of their life. That's a problem. I employ you to read the book, the little flyers we've got up there, the little flyer books, not that one, that's the SDA book. These little flyers here, which that was basically our free e-book you can read, and there's different, yeah, look, it's all the same book, it just has different headings to attract different people for different reasons, but it's all the same book. But the book covers all three of those things, right?
You're just giving it away.
I know, it doesn't matter. Because it's true. I mean, how not to starve in retirement, right? I mean, I talk about that in the book, the same as what I'm talking about, how not to end up broke like your parents, and how to cure your financial cancer. It's all the same subject, right? It's just that somebody might look at that one and go, oh, I want to know about this. Well, that's what their hot button was in the sense of what they wanted to know about it. They're going to get the same out of the book as they would if they got the other two. So the idea was to create something that would really give a good overview on people's thinking and where they're from, you know, in their thinking, in the family inputs in their lives, and then obviously then, you know, what you can do to help fix that, some of the things you can help do to fix that sort of stuff. So, you know, feel free to read, it's free, download it, just scan the QR code and you get the download. So, yep, that's about it for tonight. We'd love to know your number one purpose. What's your why? What's your reason why? What are you trying to achieve in life? Where do you want to go? Yeah, happy to chat and help you guys out for whatever you need. So, any questions anyone might have? Yes, go for it.
One of the things talked about capital gains tax.
Yeah.
If you want to just go through that example, including capital gains tax?
No, because you can't. Because
that would take a quarter of the profits out.
In theory, yes, but it depends. If you bought in a trust, it might take none of your profits out, or very little.
Right.
So it depends on the person. Depends on what they're setting up and how we're doing it and how we're structuring it. Or your super, which is, yeah, or nothing after 60. Right, so there's so many factors with capital gain tax.
You can't use it to pay off the house.
You can't, but you can still buy a property in your super. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, there's all sorts of elements about capital gains tax which are really specific for the person on how we design it. So for example, someone that's self-employed normally would say you're better off setting up a trust to protect the property against being, you know, like sued or something. But also by having it in the trust, you can. It's up to you then who has that tax problem, effectively. So every year, like you can divvy out, you know, ownership to different people because it's a discretionary. You know, you can say, well, I want them to do that. And when you go to sell it, you can. It's not like when you own it in your own name, where you might go 99% and the other person might go 1% for tax benefits, but then you're stuck that way forever. With a trust, you can muck around with it. You can change who has what. So if someone retires early, you can give them all the profit, and they're going to pay tax on what their previous year's income was, which was nothing. So they'll pay very minimal tax. So there's all sorts of ways of getting around it. Worst case scenario for most people, if you use 25% as a rule of thumb, yeah, but you can get around it by tax avoidance is illegal, but tax minimisation is not. Right? So that's the fine line that everyone works by, but that's the goal, right? Always figure out a way. And everything we do when we're designing stuff is all about the exit strategy. It's about looking at it and going, okay, you can buy it today, that's great, but that's not where your problem is. As they say, you make money on property when you buy it, not when you sell it, right? Because if you're buying right, when you sell it, it's just by default going to work. But if you buy wrong, as I said here, you're in a world of pain. You know, and this is the problem people do often. They buy in the wrong market or they buy the wrong thing and they get themselves stuck, and that's why it turns disastrous. But yeah, capital gains tax, that's why I don't go into it. It's too tricky. I mean, we might make enough on this example here to actually cover the capital gains tax, or own it for one more year to cover the capital gains tax, or whatever the solution is, right? We just got to journey with you at the time and look at it and watch it and say, okay, you're at this point now, we could sell it, but the market's still got room, it's here, we still think it might have another 12 months, you might get a bit more growth out of it, that might cover your capital gains tax bill, might be worth keeping it. Nothing is a true science, but we can. It's a moving, you know, wheel that we've always got to keep trying to keep an eye on. Yeah, you just change and tack with the wind a little bit, you know, and just following it. Yeah, it's very fluid. You just got to do it how it looks, you know, and feel it. Sometimes it's all this head knowledge, but sometimes your gut tells you a lot of things. You know, your gut can say, no, now's the time to sell. I think the market's going to go a bit crazy, and you're going to. And probably the problem with property is you can't get out fast. You know, if the market does start to turn, you get stuck. Like all the unit owners in Sydney, all the apartment owners in Sydney. Apartments are the first things to go down in a bad time, and they're the last things to go up in a good time. Right? And you've got strata levies and fees and all that sort of stuff. So they're painful to own. You know, so you want to try and avoid them where you can, you know.
As an alternative to selling, you could try and refinance it and take out the equity to pay off your home loan.
No. Because if you do that, you're paying off personal debt, which means all you've done is transferred the personal debt from there to there. The way that the tax office looks at it is it's the purpose of the debt and what you're using the money for and borrowing for that deems its tax deductibility.
So you buy another property with you.
All right, so yeah. Because the idea is it for personal use, the money you're using it for, or is it for investment use? They're the two questions you always got to ask yourself. So if you take that money and try and use it to pay off personal debt, well, you've just paid off personal debt, so you've used that money for personal use. So the tax office goes, no, you've just transferred that debt to there now. So this is the problem. It's very tricky with how you just got to make sure you're working with inside those tax rules and tax laws. Yeah, these are all things we don't worry. We've had all these ideas when we first started. What if you just did this? No, that's illegal. You know, oh, okay. Leave a note of that, you know. I mean, everyone's got great ideas, but it's not always like, you know, possible to do. You've got to work inside the boundaries of what you got, but you've got to manipulate that as much as you can with the numbers in your favour. And that's why it's tailored to you versus someone else who might have a totally different system or position in their life that they want to achieve. And that's why it's got to be about the person, not about the property. And that's why real estate agents are never going to be good at selling investment property, ever. Because they don't understand the numbers. They don't get the numbers. They're not numbers people, they're just sales people. Order takers, how they have been for the last 10 years, right? They just come in, next, sign that, yeah, sign here, done. I mean, that's all they did for 10 years. Right? Now, the rubber's hit the road, and they've all got to actually try and work hard. Oh, how do I do this? Oh, I don't think real estate's for me now. Yeah, I wonder why. You've actually got to do some work, right? Because they don't understand, like, actually how the numbers work to understand what they're doing. So for them, they're just used to selling mum and dad on emotion. The property was a $300,000 property getting $100 a week rent at the time. I'm like, in some remote place in Western Australia up the coast. I'm thinking, okay, this is wrong. You've got it all wrong. Invest, make lots of money, then make your decision when you want to go and retire to do whatever you want and have the money to do it then. You know, don't waste your time doing silly things emotionally. Get the problem, the other one is, you know, what I want to do is, you know, I've got this $900,000 home loan, but I really want to, you know, get the kids ahead and set the kids up and get them, you know, it's all about the kids. That's great. So when you go down an aeroplane and they do that safety briefing and they talk about the oxygen mask dropping down, who do they say to put it on first? Right. There's a reason for it. Because if you don't, and you're trying to fix the kids, you're all going to die. Okay? It's true. But you'll die financially if you do it the way you're talking about. Why not just get yourself in a position where you can help your kids, right? I don't totally believe helping the kids, but I don't believe giving it to them, making them like, you know, entitled little brats. They can be. I've got a couple, don't worry. All right? You've got to try and train them on this. Like, that's what I'm trying to do with my 16-year-old daughter. Don't get me started on that. But, you know, the whole idea is you want to be in a position where, why couldn't you then go and say, well, I want to buy, you know, they've got their first job, and you say, okay, well, let's go and buy something up here, you know, that's a cheap little starter for $450,000. We'll use the equity out of the home, and we'll put in this bit, and then we'll get a loan for this bit, which, you know, the kid can have loan 1, we'll have loan 2, and we're going 50-50 basically. So 50-50 ownership, and get them into the market, right? Do it the first week they start their job, right? So their money is tied up straight away, and they've got no choice but to do the Greek family method, right? Just tie the money up, right? Have no choice but to spend the money on other crap. So all they're going to do then is be in a position where they've got to pay a mortgage. Oh, this mortgage is killing me. I can't come out tonight because I've got a mortgage, you know, and I'm 20. You know, okay. But when they're 30, ringing their friends going, you want to go out? Because, like, I've got $1 million in the bank now. I'm like, oh, you got a mortgage, you can't come out? Oh, no, well. All flips around, all right? Believe me. Delayed gratification, okay? Very lost art in this world these days, but they need to learn that, and this is a great way of teaching them, because not only that, then they might go hell for leather and pay their loan off and get down to zero. They can use this equity to go and buy a property for themselves up here, another one, and go and invest again. And train them to do that. Say, you know, we're going to get stuck in, you're going to pay that one off, and then you're going to get stuck into, you know, get them started early. The longer we've got to do this, the more of a chance we've got to you know, create amazing position for them. So, any other questions? Go.
You mentioned 95% occupancy on the properties that you complete. So 1 in 20 is empty. How long do they stay empty for?
Okay, I said that about NDIS, SDA. Can't give you an answer on that. It's too hard, too complicated. Because we don't choose the tenants. The tenants choose us. Right? NDIS is not a magic list that you get and you go, oh, we'll pick John to go in our house.
Can you see them empty for quite a long period of time?
Once again, right, it depends on a lot of these factors. If you have 4 houses built in the street, what we've seen so far is when we've been competition to all the other houses in the street, our one gets rented almost straight away. And the 95% is being conservative. I mean, we were up to 99% for a while there, but we might have a tenant die. Because that's what happens in these homes. These people aren't getting any better. Okay, a lot of them are very sick. The reason they're getting that funding is because they've got a significant disability, right? So they're in a position where that funding is given to them because they're never going to be able to afford their own home. They need them out of a hospital. They don't need to be in a hospital at $1,500 a day. So they would rather spend $80,000 a year to have them in a nice house somewhere that's fully compliant. But the thing about the NDIS is that the choice and control is with the participant. So they get to choose where they want to live. So let's say, for example, they've all got the same, they've all got to pay 25% of their actual pension towards their rental income for any of their homes, right? Out of their own money. But if they're given 4 houses to choose from, or let's say 3 of them are Corollas and one's a Rolls Royce, but for the same money out of their pocket, they can have the Rolls Royce instead of the Corolla. Which one are they going to choose? Right? That's our theory. And our theory's worked well because we have one of the highest occupant rates of any SDA provider in the country.
Do you think that's where a lot of people would, well, some people would choose the rent guarantee scheme? Because at least then if the person dies, or if there's a period where it's empty for a significant period, at least their money's coming in guaranteed.
When you're getting a 14% return, I'm pretty sure you can take a 2 or 3 month, you know, slap on the wrist and just accept that there's no tenant in there if that was the case.
But
you know?
isn't NDIS a group of tenants normally, and that's why it is higher with the income?
No, this is the thing. most people are, it's so complicated, but most people are approved at a level, okay? Like there's 2 SDA approvals. There's the house getting approved as a house as a dwelling, and then there's a person, the participant, getting approved as their funding, okay? There's 4 different levels they can get approved at. So there's improved livability, which is basic disability needs, fully, yeah, so I'm just helping the others, yeah. So there's fully accessible, which is wheelchair bound. Then there's robust, which is intellectual and behavioural issues. Then there's high physical support. That problematic, right? But the thing is that we specialise in the robust space because no one else really is, and we've got a good record in the robust space. Like we've got some great tenants in there, and things are working great. Like it can work really well. It's a good level, but we design our homes to also accommodate the other 3 levels. So they're specifically robust, but they have elements in them that could allow, as long as an OT says no problem. An occupational therapist says, yeah, that person can live in there with another level of disability, then they can easily live in one of our homes. But the thing is, it's their choice where they want to live. So they can say, I don't like that house. I'm not going to live there. And they can choose. So really, if you bring them the best product in a good area, you know, where we know there's participants that need the product, then there's more likely a chance we're going to get a tenant in the home because we've got a good quality home. And that's what people want. They want somewhere nice to live. So, any other questions?
Is there any situation where you would think that being negatively geared would be an advantage?
I don't think it's ever an advantage from a cash flow point of view. Yeah. It may be an advantage from a growth point of view. So in other words, people have traditionally said, oh, I'm going to buy in Sydney because I'll get lots of growth. Especially in apartments and units, oh, the carnage that will be going on there soon, like in the next 12 months. Yeah, there'll be a lot of problems with that because people will be dropping prices. Problem in a unit is, it's like COVID. Once one person does something, everyone's got it. It just hits everybody and just smashes everyone in the whole complex. It's terrible. Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, but we got an immigration factor that you haven't talked about.
Well, there's 450,000 people since up to September that have moved into Australia. And that's a major, major problem in the sense of now housing shortages, rental shortages and that sort of stuff. But at the same time, those people are moving all around Australia into different areas. A lot of them are moving into the country. They're making the move into the country to try and balance it out. You know, the problem is that won't really start to show the proper pressure for probably 3 or 4 years. By the time the take-up of that sort of really starts to happen and everyone plays catch-up, it's not going to really show any changes. So, okay, there might be demand for stuff now, but we can't instantly build a house. It's still going to take 12 months to 18 months in some cases to get that process going to do it. But the beauty with places like Perth, for example, and Darwin, people aren't moving there for jobs and they're moving there from overseas because there's opportunity and the prices are still very, very reasonable. You know, and the idea is, I just don't ever think you're in a bad position as an investor. If you've got an investment property, it's not really a market that puts you in a position where you go, oh my goodness. I mean, COVID was probably the only thing that scared everyone a little bit because of the rents. Everyone just pleaded, oh, I can't pay my rent, you know, and that was a bit painful. But luckily, interest rates were 1-something% or whatever at the time, you know, that was lucky. But if it happened again now, when the interest rates are what they are now, it would certainly be a lot more painful. But, you know, once again, you know, you've got to put money away for a rainy day. Don't just get all this positive cash flow and go and blow it on, you know, other things. Yeah, race cars, for example. Go and put it in your mortgage. Go and put it as a slush fund. Go and have it as a buffer. Go and put it somewhere where there's actually something you save a bit of money and just for the rainy day, you know, because you can. It's in the mortgage anyway, saving you a bit of money on your home loan. So you can always reborrow it and use it if you have to, just to keep in the market, to keep surviving. But it's all about creating those numbers that, you know, to get you in a position where, to be honest, get rid of this mortgage. That's the key. That's the thing that hurts most people's lives. You know, the bank will lend you far more money. On your own income, the bank will only lend you on 40 cents on the dollar to buy your own home or personal debt. But for rental income, the bank lends up to 80 cents in the dollar, so twice as much. So every dollar you earn is twice as strong to buy an investment property than what it is to buy your own home. So if your capacity was only 900 grand to borrow over here, your capacity over here could be as much as 1.8 effectively, right? Because it's a lot more powerful. So yeah, it's just about doing the numbers that suit you guys, you know.
So in terms of financing, do normal banks finance these NDIS properties?
No, it's a punish. It's a punish. Banks don't understand the product. They don't get it.
So who finances?
Well, we have a couple of lenders who do. Through our finance business, we've got a specific lender who does, and they specialise in the product.
And are they competitive around 6%?
Oh no, they're a little bit dearer. There's a little bit more because they've got to treat it more like a commercial loan, because all the banks, the majors don't get it, right? The questions I had asked the other day from one of the clients in NAB who are looking at it was just ridiculous. Like I read the questions and went, the bank just doesn't understand this. The questions they're asking were like from a 5-year-old. Like I was like, really? Like we're 5 years into this and you're still asking these questions? Like the majors don't want to get, I was trying to work with Westpac to get them on board, but they're stuffing around. So we're just using, you know, maybe 1 or 2 lenders who will do it in this space. But if you've got equity in your home, or if you've got super, you know, you can buy it through your super. There's some advantages there. You know, I've got some people who are buying them outright in their super with cash if you've got enough in your super. You know, some of them will start from about 750, 800 for an SDA home. So, you know, you can do it in your super. If you've got equity in your home to do it, you're better off just borrowing the full amount over your home and then using that money from over the home to just build the house and do it that way and pay for it that way. Yeah, so there's other ways to skin the cat basically. We don't just always go down the one road. If I see another avenue that we can do that will make it more effective and cost effective and just easier, it's better for all of us because the banks are painful.
So you mentioned you could possibly use this for superannuation as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you've got, say, $500,000 in super, what sort of exposure would you get in property?
See, this is a financial planning question I've got to be very careful to answer because that's something that I'm not allowed to answer from that point of view. But if it was me, I can say that. Yeah. If I had $500,000 in super, I'd want to leave something in the kitty in the super fund, like maybe 100 grand to do shares, whatever, to diversify. But you could certainly allocate maybe 400 towards that, you know, towards a purchase. And there's ways of doing it. You can't buy, in a super fund, you can't buy a 2-part contract. So you can't buy a block of land and a house you're going to build and do it like that in the super fund. You can only buy a single part contract, so something that's completed and done. But there's a company out there that actually lets us convert them from 2-part to 1-part. There's a fee involved and a cost involved, but if there's no other way to do it, it's a great way to do it. It really is a good way to do it because it gets you in the market, which we never would have been able to do. So, and I've had people in super where they've got maybe $1 million in super. They want to go and buy one property with all cash. It's like, hang on. If you do that, you can't do anything else. You can't borrow back against that property in your super later. Once you've done one, that's it, you're stuck. Right? But the way they should be doing it is going and buying maybe 2 or 3, and actually having this 1-part contract structure where they can actually just put a deposit in from the super and they can get a loan on it. Whereas you can't get a loan if it's 2-part. So there's technicalities with super that make it a bit harder. But the best place to own it is super because you're going to get 15 cents on the dollar tax rate. You get all the advantages of after 60 of basically when you sell it, there's no capital gains tax. There's some big advantages of owning it in your super, massive advantages. Yeah. Self-managed, of course, it has to be self-managed. Yeah. Yeah. But it's very, very powerful. Yeah, it doesn't cost much to set up really in the scheme of things. And look, okay, hands up here, who knows where their super is right now? No.
Where is it?
What are they investing in?
Yeah.
Who are they investing in?
Yeah.
Self-managed?
No, but I choose.
Yeah, but you choose a demographic, or you choose the actual companies you're investing in? Yeah, well, not many people put their hand up and said that, did they? So this is the problem. Most of you don't even know who your super is, and you're relying on these people for your retirement, right?
I don't invest in some industries, very specific.
Yeah, right. But a lot of people aren't, and a lot of people just go, "Oh, well, the super fund just does their thing," and they give me a statement at the end of the year, and I just let it happen. Why would you do that? Control it yourself. Run it yourself if you can. You know, be the master of your own destiny. Huh?
That is a rule.
In your home is in what?
Like you can put the deposit in or whatever, but you have to leave the percentage in superannuation once you've set it up.
Yeah, well, you can't use any of it for personal use, though.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
I'm just saying
for day to
you have
day.
to keep it for investing in other
Oh,
things
yeah.
besides a property.
Yeah. You wouldn't.
That is part of
Yeah, it is. And look, that's a financial planning.
Some lenders want you to keep 200,000 in your super.
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily a lender thing, it's a financial planner thing. It all comes down to risk, right? And it all comes down to someone's butt being kicked if they do something wrong. So as long as someone's willing to sign off, i.e. a financial planner, and say, in your situation, you can do this, then no worries. You can do that, and we'll let you do it because the financial planner has said you can do it. And they're the ones taking the risk. You know, we're not allowed to give you that advice because we're not advisors in that way, you know. But they're not allowed to advise on property. So it's sort of a weird world, but you know.
Are your projects roughly that figure, 800?
I'd say that's sort of the average these days. I mean, that to about $1 million. We've got some that are a little cheaper. We've got stuff starting from $450,000, right? But it's, you know, it's basic entry level sort of stuff for younger guys, people like that want to get in, and you know. But we got, I suppose the average would be about 800, 850 these days.
They're outside of Sydney. If you were in Sydney, how much?
Well, we're not doing anything in Sydney other than the NDIS products. And they were about 1.3, 1.4 out at Tamworth. Yeah.
You said SDA and NDIS, what's the difference?
Same. NDIS is the scheme, SDA is under the scheme. So it's just SDA is the actual home, but the NDIS is the scheme itself. Yeah.
So based on that NDIS with those numbers that you gave, you would assume with the way the population is that they're mainly centralised in the capital cities.
You're spot on, but the problem is, like, this is the conundrum we're in, right? Like, my best one in Sydney I've got right now is Tamworth, right? I don't know if you all know where that is. It's miles away, right? It's not really Sydney. Well, it soon will be, right? Like, there's so much going on out there now, it's incredible, right? It soon will be, but it's so far away, and that's the best one we've got at the moment. That's $1.4 million, right? So to get the return, once again, I could sell you one in Sydney tomorrow. Or let's say we sold one here in Gymea in the Sutherland Shire, right? By the time I finish it, it'll be a $2 million project to get one participant on 80 grand a year. Why would you do it as an investor? So the government still haven't got their head around the fact that the majority of the people with disabilities are in the capital cities, but they're just not paying enough for people to invest in these areas. You know, they're just generally not, the numbers don't look attractive enough.
My concern is if you've got a concentrated amount of people in the capital cities, what's the chances of getting those participants to move to Tamworth?
Well, they're having to, because they're finding there's nothing available. So Queensland, we did a lot in Queensland, right? So we did everything from Sunshine Coast to Gold Coast, right up to Ipswich, so the big triangle, the whole southeast Queensland, right? And the lower demographic areas is where you get a larger build up of people with disabilities, right? Because normally what happens is the family members have to look after the person with a disability. One of them can't work because they're at home. One can work. It's just they're really struggling, right? And they tend to be in the areas, the lower demographic areas, because of that reason. So we were targeting those areas on purpose because we knew there was people there that needed the homes and needed them built in those areas. So, you know. Well, it's not just the research in a sense, because the numbers are somewhat hopeless sometimes. Like, you might look at the area like Caboolture, which said it was going to be the #1 location in Queensland for people with disabilities. And we went, this is a no-brainer, right? We'll build like heaps of homes here, we'll get tenants in, no problem. So we built a few homes there, couldn't find a tenant for the life of us. It was the hardest location we've done, yet all the numbers said it was the #1 place in Queensland. 18 months later, like now, every day phone calls. Have you got something in Caboolture? Have you got something in Caboolture? Caboolture's gone off its nut. Do you think we can get land there now? No.
So what changed?
Who knows? No one could tell us. Like, nobody at the NDIS will pick up the telephone, right?
Moved out from the cities.
They could have, or they could have.
Not a nice place 2.5
not.
to 3 years ago at all.
No, it's not. But what I think has happened is that a lot of the care providers, this is the whole chicken and egg thing, right? The care providers, you look at the statistics, you go, well, there's not many people approved funding here in this area, right? But then you go, well, there's no houses. So the care provider's going, well, why would I bother going through the rigmarole of getting them approved for the funding when there's no houses? So there's this whole thing of, do you then be the game one and go, well, let's from everyone's level when it comes to this level of it, right? But, you know, we know how to play the system a little bit now. We know what to do to make it work and to get things happening. You got to start advertising early. You start advertising for a tenant very early in the picture. Like when you pour the slab, that's when you start advertising, you know? Like getting all the care providers. The main thing is talking to the carers, having those relationships, because they're the ones who know. They've got the feet on the ground and they're on the pulse saying, yep, I've got 20 people that we know could easily move into that home. We know you're building a house now, we'll get them organised.
So if you were to buy NDIS and you had a computer situation, and you basically said, we can't find anyone, it's going to take 6 months to get someone in, 12 months potentially, can you revert to a normal rent?
Right, so that's a great question, right? Now, you saw the pictures of our house before. Would you live in that house like that? Yeah, you should see the other ones, right? We have had no problem doing that in the beginning. Well, in the beginning, that was what we first said. We thought, we have no idea how it's going to play out. We're going to also run the numbers for people on a basic standard rent. And mind you, when you go for the loan with the bank will only take the standard loan. They won't take the NDIS rental income. So they'll take the standard rent for the area. So it's an $800,000 house, they'll take $800 a week. They don't care if it's getting $2,000 a week on NDIS, they'll ignore that. They'll say $800 a week. So
that limits your finance.
yeah, well, it can, yeah. But the other finance we use, they do it more commercial, so they can take it, and anyway. But the main thing is, yes, you know, it's very problematic when it comes to finding tenants in these areas, getting them placed, but because we've been doing it now for 5 years, we know how to do it. We know how early to start, we're on all the right portals, we're getting a lot of inquiries every day for different areas, you know, and then we're saying to people, yeah, we don't have one there, but we do have one coming up here soon. Oh, really? Okay, well, that might be interested, you know, they might be interested in that. People are willing to travel to get into something nice, you know, and they will do it. If there's rubbish in their area, and I don't want to live in that, like, it could be their forever home. So they don't want to live there in some rubbishy hospital-looking facility. A stainless steel toilet feels like you know, it's a jail. They want to live somewhere nice and comfortable. So
Managed close to hospitals, specialists,
not necessarily.
carers.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It's not a mandatory thing. You know, if we are, it's great, but it's not a, oh my goodness, like, let's be close to a hospital and we'll kill it. You know, some levels or people are more prone to needing hospital care occasionally, but some aren't. Or family. Yep. Well, now they've got a thing now where they've just introduced since July 1, they've changed the rules so that family members now, you can actually get extra funding to have an extra bedroom in the house or whatever for family members to live there with them. Because that was a big problem. They were saying, oh no, they've got to live by themselves. So, well, family member could be living with them and saving a carer from doing it, you know? So they changed it and they've improved the funding now for family members to live there. But still no one at NDIS can actually explain how that works yet. So we're still wondering how that's all going to play out because they've introduced it, but they've got no way to explain it or how to do it.
So it's not really fair. It's not for everyone, I think. Is that what you're saying?
It's definitely not for everyone, right? It's one of those products that if you just keep listening to, if I keep telling you all the bad stuff, as I say, if you're not listening, if you haven't got someone explain the good, the bad and the ugly, then they're not selling it to you right, okay? They're not giving the story to you, right? If they're just telling, oh, it's got good rent, there's all these good things, it's like, yeah, great, but what's the bad stuff, right? If you hear all the bad stuff and you keep going, 14% return, yep, 14% return, and you ignore all the bad stuff, it's probably for you, okay? But if you just sit there going, I don't know about this, probably a bit, if there's fears that can be answered, then we've got stuff that can help you with those frequently asked questions. I can send you and stuff like that, which you can read and go, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. But because we've been doing it so long, we know how to do it. That should be comfort enough to know that we've got it sorted. But if it's just not right for you, then it's just not right for you. And we're not going to push someone into an NDIS because the numbers are great. The fear could be greater. But my job and our job, right, and as I say to the guys all the time, our job is to educate the fear out of people. That's all we're supposed to do. Keep teaching until you guys go, yeah, I'm not scared of this anymore. It makes sense. We want you on the same page and getting and understanding it.
So you've been doing this with NDIS?
5 years. Because that's how long the SDA has been running.
Do you do inspections of the property to see whether they've been treated well?
We have agents, local agents in the areas that do that, but we've also got our office girls who once a year go and do a major inspection. So the local agents hold the keys for us, they do all the basic in and out goings and stuff like that, and they do all the basic sort of stuff like that. We get a lot of photos, the photos that come through of everything. And
you've got two aggro individuals that beat each other up.
Yeah.
And assuming they've been there for a while, what's the worst sort of level of damage?
Oh, we've seen some horrific damage, but not one owner's had to pay for damages at this point.
But what happens there?
Well, there is no rule about this, okay? There's no rule that the NDIS will cover damage, but not yet has one owner covered any damage. So I can't give you an answer to that. There's no rule that says you have to pay for the damage, but so far the damage has been covered.
I mean, if you have a normal tenancy, you can get damage insurance.
You can, but these are almost impossible to get that sort of level of insurance,
So the owner wears the cost of repairing?
Well, in theory, yes. But so far, in practical, in the last 5 years, not one person's had to pay to wear the cost of it. NDIS and Queensland Government, for example, have covered. We had one guy that was so bad that they... Right? So they've said, well, we'll put him in the house, but we'll give you a whole bunch of money to pay for any of the damage because we know what he's going to do. So as I said, no one's had to pay for any damage yet, but there's no written rule to say that damage is covered by the NDIS.
But at the same time, the investor gets to choose their tenant.
Yeah, exactly. We get to know. Look, we don't know the full ins and outs, right? But we get a pretty good idea from the care provider. They'll give us a little nudge and go, this one's a bit hard, or this one's all right, right? Our majority of our tenants, not an issue. Don't hear boo out of them. They're great. They're fantastic tenants, right? Not an issue. It's just the odd one you get can be trouble. Now, in Perth, right, the ones in Queensland, we have to build them out of brick veneer. So there's plaster, reinforced plaster, which is basically useless, right? And glass windows, okay? In Perth, double brick house, polycarbonate windows. Yeah, we're able to do it over there, right? If you put a robust tenant over there, good luck. They can go nuts on the house. They ain't going to cause any damage. Right? Like, seriously, this is the problem we've been having, mostly walls and the glass. Laminated glass, but they still break it.
So in Queensland, they won't let you do double brick, or it's just too expensive?
Too expensive, way too expensive, yeah. Perth, standard thing, and it's cheap. I don't get it. It's like a different planet over there, it really is. But the value over there for these is very good, and as I said, I just think this product over there is perfect. It really is. It just means that you can have a very, very strong house that's going to withstand if you had a bad, a rowdy tenant. But generally, as I said, most of our tenants are great. No issue. We don't have a problem. It's the odd one you get that you have a few problems with, but you get to choose. We don't just go, well, we've chosen this tenant for you, good luck. You say, no, I don't want that person in my house because I'd rather that person. So... yeah, it's not mandatory. We don't bend your arm behind your back and say, But yeah, there's reasons why. I mean, that client got extra funding on top of that as well. They actually paid for 2 participants worth of funding for like 18 months. So they won big time. I just said, just don't go and look at the house. Just don't look at it. You don't want to know what's going on there. You don't need to know. You're getting lots of money coming into your bank account from the government right now. Just They've got to fix it. When they leave, it's got to be back to what it was. So let them worry about it. You know, and they're getting good money, like I'm talking good money, like, yeah.
So there is a part of the contract that at the end of the term that the government has to review.
Well, there's a. It's funny because you know they're signing a regular lease. The participants effectively signing a regular lease, but someone like that had Queensland Health involved, and they were involved because this person's disability was so great that this person wasn't in a position to be able to sign a lease. That you know, there's a lot of complexities. Okay, so but what you've got to know is most of our tenants are great. Most of our clients are happy. We've got one client now in Caboolture who couldn't get a tenant in the beginning, is now getting 19% return on her property. Because we finally got 2 tenants in her dual key property that she bought, and she's getting 19%. So, I mean, the story's real, and especially how we're doing them now and designing them now. We're making them a lot better and a lot more designed around what they need to be. So we've learned a lot in 5 years, and we've refined, especially now with the price change. We had to change the design, and now it's perfect. The design's very good now. Before it used to be like improved livability was down here, fully accessible funding was here, robust was here, and high physical support was here. Now, high physical support's moved down to here, and these other two have come up to about there. So there's not much of a step between the 4 of them now. Robust didn't change really, it stayed the same, but those jumped up massively, and this one got pulled down. So they're all now a lot more level. So it really doesn't matter who you get now. You might just get a fully accessible tenant who is in a wheelchair and they want to live in the house and they love it and they're able to do it. And that'd be great. You know, so now you can, because you can go, well, I'm only going to drop a little bit, maybe, you know, $3,000 a year or something on the funding. It's well worth doing it. But you get to make that choice. But there's a lot of moving parts to this. It's 4 different levels, but there's 900,000 different levels of disability. So nothing is always, you know, easy.
In terms of the tenants, like you say, you get to choose the tenants, but do you cross any like confidentiality things in terms of their condition? Because if you're choosing the tenant, then how can you do a proper vet?
Well, you've got to understand that we will know certain things that we can't say, like as a business, but we can certainly advise on which one we believe will be the better option. That John Smith rather than Fred Jones, you know, he's the guy you want to pick, you know. So we get a bit of a feel for who's who, and because the care providers give us sometimes that heads up, you know. It's who you know or what you know. Any other questions, anyone?
Yeah, I've got one more question.
Go for it.
You said when you first started it, was that you in the industry, or was that when the industry was offered out to companies like yourself?
So NDIS started in 2016.
Okay, what was before that then?
The state governments had disability, and they ran it terribly. And the federal government said, enough's enough, we're going to take it as a federal scheme, run it as the NDIS, and do it properly. 2016 it started, SDA didn't start till 2018. As soon as it started, we jumped in, looked at it, and we said, okay, the first thing we saw here was you're going to need to own your own property management business to do this properly. If you don't have the property management, you're really not going to understand how this works. And you're not going to be able to control the process. You're going to sell them, and you're going to be doing stuff, but it's going to be just like swinging in the dark with a blindfold on. You're not going to know what you're doing. But with the management, like it really, and it was the best decision we made, because that management gave us the understanding and the insight what to do.
So who were the investors like before 2016? Was it big companies buying?
No one did it because there wasn't a government scheme like this. No, they didn't have it like this where they would pay you as the investor to invest on their behalf. See, the government could have done it themselves, but it would end up like Housing Commission. They'd have like disability slums everywhere, right? You know, it'd be just like 50. Well, 6,500 people under the age of 40 were living in nursing homes. Like they had, like, remember I saw an interview with a 23-year-old girl, and she'd been in a nursing home for 3 years, bedridden, and she just said her flatmates would just keep dying on her every week. Like, you know, the next person would move in, some old bloke, some old lady, whatever, they'd die. You know, and she's just, and she said, like, I can't even watch the tennis, you know, and do anything I want to do. Like, I have to bedtime at 8 o'clock every night, everyone's going to bed, you know. She was a living hell. She moved into her own home. She said it's just the most liberating, freeing thing. She said, the first night I was there, I went out with my friend till 4 o'clock in the morning because I could. You know, it liberated her. We've had some tenants go into these homes and tell us that their whole behaviour has changed because they're now living in their own home. They feel like they're part of something, they're like got something of their own, and yeah, the whole behaviour's changed. you know. So it really is a good scheme, and it's doing some. And some of the stories, I mean, the amount of tears that have been in my office with my girls with some of the stories that they've heard and the amazing stuff that they've heard and seen happen, and the lives that we've been able to transform from this is amazing. It is pretty cool, you know, like people getting proper housing and enjoying where they live for once, you know. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. Anything else? That's it. Good job, guys. Thanks for coming tonight. Appreciate it heaps. Hopefully it was informative enough.